How to acquire self-discipline in organizations. Self-discipline is the foundation of personal success, organizational growth, and long-term achievement. In this video, Self-Discipline in Organizations, How to Acquire Self-Discipline, we explore the most powerful models, strategies, and practical methods that help individuals and institutions correct their direction, strengthen their mindset, and build sustainable habits. You will learn how discipline shapes behavior, improves productivity, enhances leadership skills, and creates high-performance systems. Whether you are an entrepreneur, manager, student, or self-improvement enthusiast, this video will guide you through proven techniques to develop mental strength, emotional control, and professional consistency. I have searched all dictionaries for the synonyms of the word discipline, in order to find out its real meaning, so I chose these terms, and arranged them in descending order. According to the degree of their closeness, to achieving the meaning from my point of view, they were, a system of guidance, rules of behavior, self-control, training in following the right path, politeness of behavior, and a branch of knowledge. If we examine the meanings of these terms to find the best possible definition of discipline, we will find that there is something in common between these synonyms that all converge on it, which we can refer to briefly as a process of directing the human soul, or a system towards the right direction, or a useful way for achieving specific and disciplined goals or results. Discipline has many aspects and models, but at the end these aspects, or models meet under one idea, entitled Methods of Urging to Correct the Compass of Direction, either for humans or systems. For example, this guidance has resorted to either, in an effort to correct education structure, or correct some social behaviors, or correct the course of business and projects, or correct various policies, etc. Now comes the role of the important and urgent question: is discipline inherent in us or acquired? This question always remains stuck in the minds of many. As it relates to the origin of discipline, which necessitates repeating the question, and gaining more detail, so we say whether discipline can be inherent in us, or if it can be acquired when to be used over time, and with resorting to training. Of course, as human beings usually differ, it has not been reached to what can be asserted about this matter, but in front of that, I found myself inclined to the fact that discipline may be an original branch of human characteristics. And the same also applies to different systems, but in itself may needs to be processed, discovered, studied and understood, and then work on directing it in the right way, according to the specific standards, by using advanced, renewable, and most successful means until it becomes effective. In this case, we can say that discipline has become acquired with new and correct features, and at this point, also, we can say that discipline has become a tangible meaning of the highest degree of performance, which can lead to what we can call the term self-discipline. We may often find that organizations fail to understand that maintaining good performance, including correcting bad behaviors, is a prerequisite for developing self-discipline, yet it is not enough. Organizations may be effective in maintaining order and performance, but they are not necessarily effective in developing self-discipline, or in preventing future behavior problems. As this is more evident when both systematic rewards are supervised by managers or decision-makers. Clearly delineating work rules and expectations, and informing staff of the consequences of misbehavior, are the main techniques used in managing behavior. It is worth noting here that, when the consequences of misbehaviors are removed at a later time, individuals are expected to act independently, after they have learned how not to repeat the same misbehaviors. And because of this, it will be necessary to provide a good example, like reliance on external control, as do many organizations, which adopt a zero-tolerance mentality. A zero tolerance is an approach to non-compliance and misconduct that focuses exclusively on the discipline required within and outside the organization environment. Includes punishment, suspension, expulsion, and transfer to an alternate location, or other business, where these treatments are included in the so-called sanctions book, which contains the regulations related to correcting minor and major behavioral violations, in addition to activating continuous monitoring towards the behavior of employees. Although, there are certainly more positive programs that can simply replace such punitive techniques, such as using tangible rewards for good behavior, regardless of job level or individual needs, and not at the same time focusing on other strategies that promote self-discipline. All of this will be considered as a failure towards teaching employees skills, which will promote appropriate and independent behaviors, and it is certain that fair and reasonable policies governing serious and chronic behavior problems, as well as the strategic use of rewards, should be a part of the discipline program to be applied in the organization. However, the effective organization should consider these policies as the only one part of a more comprehensive plan. As this comprehensive plan applies to the entire organization, and includes a full set of strategies and techniques, based on clear foundations, to achieve 4 important objectives. A. Work to develop self-discipline. B. Work to prevent undesirable behavior. C. Working to correct undesirable behaviors. D. Immediate response and treatment of serious and chronic behavior problems. How to develop self-discipline. From a societal and ethical point of view, we will find that self-discipline is responsible behavior, motivated primarily by intrinsic factors, and not only by the expectation of reward, or fear of punishment. Research has shown that self-discipline enhances positive relationships with others, allows the creation of a positive atmosphere within the organization, enhances the pace of business completion, and also enhances the self-value and subjective emotional well-being of employees. And strategies for developing self-discipline are usually part of programs based on personality development, learning, and training through the identification of social and emotional states. These programs include the following strategies. 1. Resorting to provide training programs by specialists for the employees of the organization, in order to learn the foundations of successful social and emotional relationships and behavioral skills. 2. Providing training programs or, alternatively video documentaries, for various models of solutions to social and ethical problems, and what can be deduced from directives towards responsible behavior. 3. Provide many opportunities for the staff to show their talents towards solving social and ethical problems, and settling responsible behaviors. These opportunities must include holding meetings in the presence of the staff, in order to review and confront all the problems facing the organization. Also among these opportunities, allowing the staff to participate in helping others in the community, engaging in activities related to conflict resolution, playing a mediation role, learning how to do service delivery, cooperation, and also playing sports, etc. 4. Work to challenge the self-centered thinking of employees, especially during disciplinary meetings, where there will often be a tendency to make excuses or justify moral infringements. Examples of excuses and justifications. This problem started in another department. I had no intention of smashing the machine. Others did it too, and there was no punishment. These excuses and justifications, which are based on self-centered thinking, must be tactfully confronted by managers and decision-makers in the organization, with exposure to explanations of the models of thinking required to be reached, and alerting towards the sense of guilt about the matter, and ways to prevent treatment, in order not to repeat the same mistakes. How to prevent undesirable behavior of employees. In general, most of the research that has been conducted on this issue supports the effectiveness of a reliable approach to discipline, rather than an authoritarian or permissive approach to the prevention of behavior problems. Managers or decision-makers who have confidence in the organization, they set a high standard in order to reach top expectations. They also enforce rules and standards in a firm, fair and consistent manner, and they also work to promote autonomy. By encouraging the active participation of workers in making decisions about their behavior. They may also use punitive strategies and harsh reactions when needed, but they place more emphasis on using positive and proactive techniques to increase the likelihood that staff will willingly show appropriate behavior, rather than reluctance or pressure. It must be emphasized that the level of quality of the existing relationship between managers or decision-makers and employees is always a major concern for the owner of the organization, seeking to strengthen those positive relationships. We can say that the manager or the decision-maker is a trustworthy person who works to create the atmosphere of his department and also contributes to creating the general atmosphere across the organization, through which employees follow standards of behavior. Hence, we must point out that additional prevention strategies that are used by managers or decision-makers with confidence should be included. Additional prevention strategies. Providing trainers and training activities in order to create motivation towards learning. Work to develop routine procedures and steps through which the course of behaviors can be predicted. Working on developing problem-solving and decision-making skills among employees of the organization. Creating a physical, spatial environment, conducive to training and learning, halls for training and study. Work to activate continuous monitoring of employees, and to respond immediately to any indication of defective behavior. Using appreciation and rewards through a specific strategy, in order to achieve the maximum possible effectiveness towards improving behaviors, while minimizing the risk of diminishing employee self-motivation. How to correct the bad behavior of employees. A manager or decision-maker who has confidence in the organization should act to direct the employee rather than control them. As the disciplinary encounters are seen not only as cases that may require punishment as a means of correction, but also as an opportunity to teach appropriate behavior, and provide help to develop self-discipline, and prevent future behavior problems. Similar to the approach to preventing bad behavior, managers or decision-makers should combine the following. Responsiveness, which means showing support, care and striving to prevent permanent damage to the manager and employee relationship. Demand, which means consistency, communicating clear expectations of appropriate behavior, and imposing just consequences. When resorting to correcting the bad behavior, the manager or effective decision-maker must resort to the use of one of the techniques to correct the course of behavior, which is either punitive techniques or substitution techniques. Punitive techniques. Verbal reprimand with harsh words, showing the red eye. Reducing movement within the organization, showing commitment to the workplace. Cessation of privileges, until return to the practice of good behavior. Suspension from work for a specified period, transfer to another department, or finally expulsion from the organization. Substitution techniques. These techniques aim to achieve the same goals as punitive techniques, but they focus on teaching or reinforcing desirable behaviors that may replace undesirable behaviors. These techniques include training on managing tantrums, positive reinforcement of good behavior, engage in providing solutions to social problems, direct guidance towards desirable and good behaviors. Engage in conflict resolution inside and outside the organization. Resorting to modeling and simulation to highlight the desirable and good behaviors. An effective manager or decision-maker with trust must use both punitive and substitution techniques to correct bad behaviors. Also, he must check all constraints in order to resorting to punishment, and because of these constraints, he must work more seriously to avoid the use of punishment. Instead, he must focus on activating strategies for developing self-discipline and preventing the occurrence of those bad behaviors. Finally, we must emphasize that, when resorting to techniques to correct bad behavior, it must begin with mild forms of punishment. And when resorting to the use of penal techniques, it should be used fairly and judiciously, in order to reinforce desired behaviors. Treatment of serious and chronic behavior problems. The described earlier strategies and techniques will generally be sufficient to develop self-discipline and prevent or correct behavior problems of the staff in most organizations and employees with chronic or serious behavioral problems. Especially those demonstrated to be resistant to interventions for reform, they need more comprehensive services, resources, and support. The strategies and techniques to be used towards solving chronic and serious behavior problems tend toward intensification of use rather than the design of meaning. And they differ from the strategies described before, for treating everyday discipline issues. In other words, these strategies and techniques are more targeted and intense. And they are more specific to the category, among the employees who are resistant to interventions for reform, which are more in line with the level of support and intensive interventions, and work to provide these treatments. Treatment must depend on gathering facts. Intensive and sustainable treatment under the umbrella of honest application. Treatment must be carried out individually, each case has its own treatment method. Comprehensive targeting of risk factors and providing prevention in their multiple forms. Realizing the importance of early intervention, as soon as signs of behavioral problems appear. Adopting a system in which some mental health professionals and trainers work to communicate with employees and their families. This support, intervention, and service provision not only addresses the needs of employees with chronic behavioral problems, but also prescribe to treat those who may not have a history of behavior problems and suddenly develop serious behavioral problems that require immediate intervention. And this of course will prevent the occurrence of crises within organizations, especially those associated with acts of violence.